I was 12 and my older sister and I were home alone for the weekend. I was waiting for a friend to pick me up and getting restless. There was a knock on the door. Thinking it was her, I ran to answer it without checking through the peephole. A man was standing there with a clipboard and said he needed to check our gas meter. I was entrenched in the disappointment of my friend still not having arrived, so just told him, "Yeah, sure, whatever you need to do." I didn't notice at the time, but he wasn't dressed as a city official. He had on a green and purple shirt with bold stripes like the host of Blue's Clues. He came in and immediately went up the stairs to where our bedrooms were and walked into the open door of my room, the typical girly girl room with pink and glitter. Thank God my sister came down the stairs at almost that exact moment. She said, "Oh, is that Daphne's dad? Why is he going upstairs?" And I complained about how Daphne wasn't here and was going on about how unreliable she was when my sister cut me off. Wait, if Daphne isn't here, who is that?" I said, "He's here to read the gas meters." Her face turned white. She flung open the front door and dragged me out, hand clamped over my protesting mouth. She said, "Our gas meters are outside." Neither of us had a cell phone, it was the 60s, and obviously weren't going back in the house to call authorities on the landline phone. Then my ever-resourceful sister had a stroke of genius. A man was walking right by our house and she motioned him over. She called loudly into the house, "Oh, Dad, it's good you're home. A man from the city is here to read the gas meters upstairs." The man in the striped shirt bolted out of the house. The man on street asked us repeatedly if we were okay, if we needed him to stay and wait in the yard with us until our parents came home. We were so startled that we barely thanked him before slamming and locking the doors and windows. As irate as my sister was that I let someone in the house, she begged me not to call the authorities because my parents left her in charge and she worried she'd be in trouble. I didn't want to catch any heat from carelessly allowing some guy in, so I was on the same page. 3 weeks later, a girl in our community went missing. Same MO, she was home alone and authorities found the door open and no signs of forced entry. My sister and I discussed our options, but deep down knew we had no choice but to come clean. We told the police everything. I don't know if it ever helped, but they did tell us they had reason to believe it was the same man. They also tracked down the man who helped us on the street. Turns out we already knew him. He worked in the butcher shop. We just didn't recognize him. He was lifelong friends with the family after that. Our parents were mortified. They weren't angry with us, just glad we were okay, though they did review all the rules of caution and didn't leave us home alone for a while. They found the girl and say she'd been held for a few days and then burned alive. They never caught the man, but fear not. He was in what appeared to be his early 30s in the 1960s, so in any case, he has to be dead by now. I just thank God every day for my sister's resourcefulness and quick action. It's 1:40 a.m. here and I just recently got back home. I live with 3 housemates who are all away due to university holidays, so I'm living alone for the next week. Having just got home from work, I got out of my car and walked down the driveway path from the garage to the front door. Upon walking around the corner, pitch black mind you, I noticed that the door was ajar and a light at the end of the hallway was on, illuminating the immediate path from the front door. Slightly creeped out, I went inside to see what the hell was going on. I walked inside, checked out the house slowly, and couldn't see anything. There was literally no chance that any of my housemates had arrived home, and I was the only other person with a key. I began to walk outside back to my car to call the police. As soon as I walked outside, the light that was illuminating the path before it went around the corner suddenly disappeared into blackness. The light had been turned off. I ran as fast as I could around the corner to my car, and not being able to see anything due to the moon being behind the clouds, I attempted to avoid the trees and pot plants that I know are along the way to my car. Without warning, I ran full speed into a really hard object and I got knocked into the ground. A little dazed but still scared, I got up and ran the remaining 10 meters to the car, not caring about what I hit. I turned the car on, reversed out of the garage and past the point where I fell over, and I saw a single shoe sitting on the ground with broken grass and dirt everywhere where I had fallen. I had ran into the person who broke into my home. I sped out of my front gate and down the road. I got the end of the street and sat and waited near the 7-Eleven until I met with the police. Anyway, I've been sitting at home now with the police for the past 30 minutes while they look around. What horrified me a little more was that when we got back to my house, the shoe was gone, and all the lights were on. 12 hours later, the police left shortly after looking at how the bloke got into the house. Looks as if he removed a screen from around the back and unlocked the door from the inside. The only thing missing was a photo album. The only thing the police were able to get was CCTV footage from the end of the street. Dead-end road, so every car has to enter and exit from the same place. The only car that came and went in that time frame was mine, so I have no idea what his intentions were. It's a good 10-15 minute walk to the end of the street where the 7-Eleven is, so there's every chance he saw my car and the police car driving down the road. It all started over a year ago, living in my current small neighborhood. It was unusually hot in our house for October, and my sister figured it'd be a good idea to keep her window open for a bit of air. She was doing her homework, and I was getting ready for bed, when suddenly she bursts in my room. She frantically says that she heard some noises outside, sounds of leaves crunching under a person's steps. I believed it to be an animal, so I walk into her room and stay there for not more than 5 minutes until I hear leaves crunching. We quickly glance out the window only to hear the sound of something running away in the woods. But that wouldn't be the end of the story. During the winter, I enjoy exploring the woods towards the back of my house, climbing trees and traveling further back to the fields. I remember the events very clearly. It had just snowed that night, first snowfall of winter, and I was more than excited to head out there. I did so and climbed my usual tree to look out. I gave a cursory glance around me and at the ground when I noticed something strange, footsteps leading away from my house. This wouldn't be weird as long as front of the footsteps didn't end pointing straight at my house and the origin of them came from a seemingly long off start. I tracked them down up to a point where there was a rusty wire fence covered in snow where they disappeared. October 2017, it started up again. I was laying in my bed, pitch dark, not a light shining through my room when I heard it, my doorknob turning and my door creaking open. My heart stopped. Every single possibility of what it was rushing through my mind. Keep in mind my door is always shut when I go to sleep. Since I was covered by my blanket, I quickly shot my sister a text. "Did you just come in my room?" She replied with a sharp, "No, I'm all the way in Hilliard." My heart began pumping fast. I slowly snuck my hand under my pillow and grabbed my baton, sent a text to my dad, and waited. My dad came in mere minutes later with a knife, shot on the lights, and I jumped out of bed. Searched the entire house with nothing. Alarm set and all doors locked. Impossible. There's no way that happened otherwise. My dad and mom were asleep and a cat would have opened it much faster if it jumped at the doorknob. You best believe I didn't sleep a second that night. Fast forward to December, my relatives in town staying for a week in the basement. We turn on the alarm and all head to sleep. I stayed up gaming. In the morning around 3 a.m., estimated since I wasn't aware what had transpired, my uncle slowly opened his eyes, with a feeling of being watched. His eyes adjusted a bit to the dark before he saw it. A guy, average height, scrawny, hair flowing in the wind and shivering, looking inside their room through the window. My uncle screamed and they grabbed the baby before taking off upstairs. That morning I was informed what happened. I looked for footprints and saw only the smallest sign of a footprint, a front toe print made by what I could only assume was a sneaker. My uncle gave me more details without me telling him I looked for footprints, and he said the guy was leaning to the left looking in. The footprint matched his story. The left had a thin line of dirt anyone could have shimmied across. Now that leads to tonight, the night I could swear he or whatever it was had been in our house. I couldn't sleep. Life has been stressful lately, and I was up pretty much all night until I tried getting rest. Every night I've had string Christmas lights dimly light the room until tonight. I figured the lights must have been interfering with my sleep, so I unplugged them and headed off to sleep. Pillow over my head, I started to drift off until it happened. A quick strum of my guitar and the sound of something falling over with a desperate attempt to stop it from hitting the ground filled the room. I could feel the presence of someone in my room. Realizing I left my baton on my desk, I did the next logical thing: pretend I was asleep. I tried and laid there for what felt like hours when in reality, it was only a few minutes until I heard a whimper come from my sister's room. Imagining this may be the day everyone in my family was silently murdered but me, I gathered all the courage I had. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and grabbed my baton. I busted into my sister's room and screamed, "Hey!" only to see they were unharmed. My sister asked what the hell I was doing, and I just stood there, looked into the pitch black of my room, and cried. I have never in my life felt the overwhelming emotion of believing my family was going to be taken from me until today. I sit here in my chair writing this in hopes to document my experiences and try to come to some logical conclusion. All I can come up with is that there is some guy stalking my family and perhaps sneaking into our rooms at night.